My name is Helen Stewart, and I'm a member of the Yates County branch of the American Association of University Women. We're doing a project through the eyes of women of Yates County. Today we're privileged to be talking with Phyllis Smith. Phyllis is a longtime member of Yates County and Penn Yan. She was a member of AAUW and a retired school teacher. We certainly welcome you today, Phyllis.
Thank you, Helen.
Would we begin by having you tell us something about your beginnings and where you were born?
I was born in a small village in Bradford County, Ulster, Pennsylvania. But I must tell you that my roots lie in Yates County. I was not aware of this until about 6 years ago, when a gentleman researching genealogy came to the door and said, was I Phyllis Bradley, who had written for the Bradford County Historical Society? And I said, yes, indeed. And then he said that I'm a far removed cousin. He has sent me material over the years, and I'd like to share some of that with you. I'm a 10th generation direct descendant of John Townsend from Massachusetts. He was there in the late 1600s. Later, some of the Townsends moved out in this direction, and for over 200 years, Townsends moved from Bradford County, Pennsylvania to Yates County, New York. In 1894, Elijah Townsend is registered on the tax rolls of Torrey. And I have here two special pictures to show you. May I introduce you to Hezekiah Townsend? And to Hannah Townsend, who are buried in City Hill Cemetery. Hannah was a sturdy lady. She lived to be 100 years old. And I have yet to go down and find these markers, but I know they
What is it? You have a poem there
that was written in the 17th century.
Okay.
Nobody knows the author.
And since you're a reader of poetry and teller of stories, I think this is most appropriate to add this to your tape.
Will Giles was in my family tree, and I told you before I'm proud of him. He and his wife Martha were involved in the Salem witch trials of 1792. Martha was accused first. She was sort of a domineering, know-it-all woman and wasn't too well liked, so the girls that were at the root of this episode accused her of being a witch, and she was hung.
Ooh.
And she said that Giles acted strangely at the time, that she found him praying before the fireplace in his nightshirt, and she took away hid the family horse or some such thing so he could not go to the trial because she thought he was acting strange and he thought she was acting strangely.
So the girls accused her.
She was accused first.
And then she accused her husband.
And then her husband was accused.
Uh-huh.
In other words, she wasn't going down alone.
That's right. But I think maybe I've confused you. I think that he was also accused by this nucleus of children who were affected. And scientists say now that perhaps the fungus ergot, which was on the rye, led to the hallucinations. But a lot of it was self-induced. They were born with the strict New England winters, and they gathered at the Reverend Parrish's house to hear the black slave Tituba, and so none of them were witches.
So you think they accused both the members of the couple?
Oh, yes.
And so then she said it's not me, it's him, and he said it's not him.
Yeah, they both thought each other was involved. But this poem, when Giles came to trial, he refused to enter a plea.
Okay.
And this was so his land couldn't be taken from him. And so he was in prison for a while, and then he was taken to a field by the jail. And heavy weights, millstones, are placed upon his chest. And he lived 2 days, and when he was asked if he had anything to say, he'd only say more weights.
Because he wanted to die sooner,
He
is
wanted
that?
to get it over with. And it may have been a turning point in the epidemic, some writers say. But his courage made him a public hero. And this poem came out in the 18th century, and I'd like to read it for you. Giles Corey was a witted strong, a stubborn witch was he, and fit was he to hang upon the locust tree. So when before the magistrates for trial he did come, he would know to true confession me, but was completely dumb. Giles Corey said the magistrate, what hast thou here to plead to those who now accuse thy soul of crime and horrid deed? Giles Corey, he said not a word, no single word spake he. Giles Corey, said the magistrate, will press it out of thee. They got them a heavy beam and laid it on his breast. They loaded it with heavy stones and hard upon him pressed. More weight, now said this wretched man, more weight again he cried, and he did no confession make, but wickedly died.
Well, I guess that had meaning that I had never really understood, pressed to death.
Well, it just literally pressed to death, break your
Couldn't
bones
breathe.
and press the breath right out of you. So, it's been fascinating.
Children, or are they relatives, from the,
Well, we were researching the name Zilpha Corey that a cousin of my grandmother's had spoken about. And we went to New England and we did our research. And in searching for the name Zilpha, I find tracings back to Giles Corey. And then it was authenticated. And he truly was in my family. Now, The Crucible was a play, but it was said about witchcraft. And it involved some of the names of people who were in the witchcraft travesty.
I was just, did it say how old they were when this
He was
happened?
80.
Okay, so they were quite elderly.
Martha was his second wife. We visited the cemetery. We saw Martha's tombstone, and we saw his first wife's tombstone, Mary Breast.
How old was she? She was
I
hanged.
don't remember that. I guess I was centered more on Giles than anything else.
And they had children, his
Yes,
first wife had children then?
His first wife had children. I've got the chart that shows them all the way down to Zilpha,
Okay.
who I think was the grandmother or the great-grandmother of my grandmother.
So it's a direct descendant.
It's a direct descendant. I've got the whole line just as I have with the Townsend. I don't think my children appreciate this heritage.
But, he was strong-willed to
He was
do that. Yeah.
It's nice though once in a while when someone is interested in genealogy.
Yes.
Because I know my sister is, and I'm glad she is. I don't have the same enthusiasm for it.
I
I appreciate
when it's
it.
too late, you will. My grandmother came out from New Hampshire by covered wagon. I didn't know that until after she was gone. And the questions I would love to have asked, how did they manage along the way? It just boggles my mind.